a majority of states are now they have enforced the masks requirement, and many chains like Walmart, Sam's Club, which is like under the same
Yeah,
banner.
brand. Yeah.
Yeah, they have enforced masks in their stores. Many other stores they have enforced that. So and the federal thought process is changing. They are more and more accepting the requirement of masks. So it's changing.
There are a lot of companies that have been badly affected by the pandemic in America, including the old traditional J.C. Penney, Brooks Brothers, and all that.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if they will not be there in 2021. So most of them might not.
They've already signed for whatever chapter, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Yes, they've already filed for that.
Yeah.
But
So
those were already in bad shape, JC Penney and all.
yes.
J.C. Penney was not exactly in bad shape. It was sort of balanced. But Brook Brothers, I don't think was in so bad shape. They stitched those coats for 43 presidents in the past.
No,
You know,
but I think many
the,
stores closed down recently, and before the
Yeah.
no,
pandemic
no.
started.
Well, these are very traditional places like Macy's and all that. Those customers who would go there are very loyal.
Uh-huh.
So the pandemic has not allowed them to survive. It's clearly the pandemic. Not without the pandemic, maybe they would have pulled on for another. They also would have had a chance to change. The pandemic didn't give them a
Yeah.
chance to change also.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So yeah, they were not doing that kind of excellent business, but they could have pulled for several more years. Maybe by closing some of their stores in certain places and opening in some others or maintaining. But because of the pandemic, I would not be surprised if Macy's is no more there in a 6 months or a
Hmm.
year. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's the model is very different. So
I can see Professor
So,
Smarky Patnaik.
so should we start now? It's 3 p.m.
Oh,
So will we
sure.
start?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure, sure.
yeah.
Let's start.
Before we start, I would request all the participants to please keep their audio and video off. To avoid any kind of disruption and disturbances, please. And also, you can put forward your question through the chat box to us. Once all the speakers have spoken, I'll bring up the question to them. Thank you. Uh, hello everyone, and welcome to today's international webinar on positive thinking, a new look at happiness. I hope you all are safe and healthy. I am Dr. Smarky Patnaik, and I'll be your moderator for the session. I work here as an assistant professor at ASBM University, and I am really excited to be hosting this session today. I am pleased to introduce you to the eminent speakers for the session. First, we have with us Mr. Yogi Sriram, the advisor to CEO and MD, Group Human Resources, Larsen and Toubro, a USD 21 billion technology, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and financial services conglomerate with global operations. Mr. Yogi is a self-driven and focused HR thought leader with over 43 years of shaping and leading the HR functions across diverse industries. Right from manufacturing, hospitality, finance, FMCG, petroleum, and construction. He has shaped the HR function at the Shriram Group, earlier DCM, NTPC, and Asia Brown Brewery Limited. He has led the HR function at Dabur, BP, Taj Group, and L&T Group, and has expertise in the area of HR strategy, HR policy, senior level hiring, change management, etc. He is in fact the longest serving HR leader in the country with 43 years of continuous service in HR. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Here, I would like to take the opportunity to inform everyone and also congratulate Mr. Yogi Sriram as he has been elected by IMA Council of Management as representative of professional individual members,
Thank you.
PIM Fellow.
Thank
Hearty
you. Thank you.
congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Mr. Sriram.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We also have with us Dr. Pramod Pathak, a senior professor of management at one of the oldest premier higher education institutes of India, ISM Dhanbad, now an IIT. He has been a student of psychology, and for the last over 45 years, he has been teaching, researching, and consulting on a wide range of subjects. Holding a PhD in stress management, he is a postgraduate in psychology and an MBA from BHU, India. A social scientist of considerable experience, Dr. Pathak is a reputed commentator, blogger, and widely read columnist on contemporary global issues for over 2 decades. We welcome you, sir. Last but not the least, we welcome Dr. Ramaprasad Mahapatra, an associate professor in the Department of Geography at the Minnesota State University, Mankato, Minnesota, USA. He has more than 20 years of experience in the field of geospatial technologies and 16 years of teaching experience in USA. His teaching and research interests are in the area of geographical information system, remote sensing, modeling and simulation, machine learning, big data, etc. Originally from Odisha, India, Dr. Mahapatra earned his doctoral degree in geography from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. He considers himself as a positive thinker who is influenced by both the Indian and Western philosophy. We are really fortunate and delighted to have with us such eminent speakers today, and again welcome you all to the session. The pandemic and the phases of lockdown have affected people regardless of gender, age, economic, socio-cultural background in different ways. In general, people are finding it difficult to cope with the changes and the so-called normal. To live a happier, healthier life, it's important to learn how to accentuate the positive. Lifestyle alterations due to COVID-19 have affected the thought process of people. Our thoughts, either positive or negative, are translated into action. In such difficult times, we certainly need to adopt positive thinking as a regular practice, which in turn is a part of positive psychology. The term positive psychology is a broad one, encompassing a variety of techniques that encourage people to identify and further develop their own positive emotions, experiences, and character traits. We generally don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Our perception, which drives action, is a cognitive process and directly or indirectly is formed by our thoughts at large. There are certain things which can't be changed and are beyond our control. In such cases, in order to be happy, we need to change our thought process to accept the things as they are. The ratio of positive to negative thoughts is a major factor in overall happiness. Your brain is constantly monitoring the emotional tone of your thoughts. Too many negative thoughts, and your brain responds by creating stress and sadness in your body. When you add more positive thoughts, your brain will create relaxation and happiness. Positive thinking in general means looking at things with a positive perspective or the positive outlook. Believing or having faith that your actions and efforts are going to yield positive results and outcomes forms the basis of positive thinking. We need to accept the fact that the more positive your thought process is, the merrier your life will be. According to a new study published in Emotions titled The Expanding Class Divide in Happiness in the United States, money can buy happiness, disputing the age-old adage, money can't buy happiness. This study found correlation between income and happiness. In fact, my doctoral research work on happiness showed that a great organizational culture always breeds happiness and in turn leads to positive psychological contract, which ultimately will create a performing organization. Considering this as a brief background set on the topic, I would like to put forward my first question to Mr. Yogi Sriram, who is a veteran in HR and has handled both people and people processes in various organizations. Sir, what's your take on positive psychology and how do you see happiness relating to positive psychology? Please, sir.
Thank you, Professor Patnaik. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, sir.
See, positive psychology is actually a scientific study of a human functioning in an optimal manner. An optimal manner means that every human being has a certain performance threshold, has also a potential threshold, and at least to perform at the level that one is gifted to perform, God gives us the gift to perform. One can perform if one is positively inclined, and positive psychology is all about the study where you scientifically measure that. Now, the goal is to understand and apply those factors that helps individuals and communities to thrive and flourish. So basically, what it means is that we have to understand, first of all, what is the genesis of happiness, what is the genesis of positive psychology. I'm going to now talk about positive psychology more than happiness, because positive psychology might is likely to lead to happiness. But basically, positive psychology has two elements. It has elements of flourishing and resilience. Um, in my view, it has many factors. One, it's not like an electrical switch. You switch it on and you're positive, and you switch it off that it's negative. Uh, those positive feelings that you're talking about, and I'm talking about, are something that one experiences in a continuum. According to me, there are incremental stages. And what is very important is to recognize within oneself as to when do you feel drained and negative, or when do you feel good and positive. Some people are morning people, some people are evening people. So that is one fact. The second is, it's also important possibly to recognize the external factors. For example, in some of the very cold countries like, let's say, Norway, Sweden, etc., where you find very little light, especially in the winter months. They say that people are more prone to depression and more prone to mental diseases. And therefore, it's very important to know oneself of when are you prone to more of that kind of a negative feelings. For example, in the city of Bombay, not only do you not get your D vitamin quota in monsoon time, but you also can't see the sun sometimes for days together. And just like the British weather, the grey skies, etc., which we can see now from outside my balcony, may make you think negative, which is not a good idea. Uh, so therefore, one should be very aware of what is it that makes you feel positive or makes you feel negative. I want to now talk about a different dimension when it comes to positive psychology. Um, One of the tendencies in certain cultures, including in the Indian corporate culture, seems to be that feedback as a part of performance appraisal should focus more on the negative than the positive. There seems to be an unconscious bias on that. So therefore, any performance appraisal conversation which I have noticed, while it has some positives, just to break the ice, the emphasis is a lot on the negatives. And I can tell you, those who want to receive the feedback also are looking more for the negatives than the positives. They say, oh, positives I already know. Tell me more about the negatives. Now, that is not a great idea, because what is important is that one should know what is it that makes you feel positive and good. One should also be in an environment, or try to nurture an environment where you are praising not in a phony way, but giving genuine feedback to make people feel more confident and positive, which is very important. The other point I wish to make is many in the global context, not only in India but all over the world, do employee engagement surveys where they try to measure how engaged are employees feeling. Now, how disengaged or how engaged are they feeling? Now, disengagement and engagements are states of mind, and they are perceptions of company policy, the way leadership treats you, the way you are engaging with your job, whether you feel good, whether you feel bad, whatever it is. I do feel that the world is now also looking at not just why people are unhappy, but why people are happy. It's very important to know why people get happy. So when you look at say a Hindustani classical singer who's putting one hand behind the ear, closing the eyes, and rendering a fantastic raga, you can see that the person is experiencing bliss. The person is experiencing true happiness or true positive psychology. Because what is happening is, as some of the psychologists like Csikszentmihalyi talks about flow, and Seligman talks about positive psychology. Csikszentmihalyi says, when you're in flow, uh, you don't know what's happening around you. You're with the flow of, say, playing a musical instrument. So where every time you witness an orchestra, or you go to a musical show, you will see that people are closing their eyes. The people who are playing the tabla or the harmonium or the musical instruments are singing because they are in flow. I think that positive psychology is an extremely important topic to talk about today in these times for many reasons. One is, in its own way, it's a kind of a vitamin. It builds your resilience, it builds your immunity, if you ask me. You think negative the whole day, when am I going to get COVID-19? Your immunity is anyway going to fall because you're going to be all the time obsessively thinking about it, and your mental, your whatever antibodies can be produced by your mind are being distracted, which is very distracted, is not a good idea. The antibodies will be prevented probably, that's my theory, from forming because you will be probably thinking about something or obsessing about it. The second point is we are a young country. We are a country where a large number of our population is 25 or below. There is a huge potential in our country to upskill, reskill, and skill up many people in our population. Many people who are, let's say, even in the who are living on the margins, on the fringes, etc. There is a huge potential for them to learn new skills and so on. I have seen amongst apprentices, I have seen in factories and training classes and so on, that when one is absorbed with what one is doing, uh, it is actually a form of positive psychology because you feel confident. You're making those incremental wins. Let's say there's a young man or a young woman who's asked to make something with the lathe machine and to burr it and so on. You feel a sense of great accomplishment, and let's say you're supposed to build a quadcopter or or some kind of a device. You feel very good when you construct it and when you make it run. I also think that in today's context, especially in urban areas, there is huge pressure, not only because of corporate rat races, but also because of various issues. I mean, urban areas are very vulnerable in terms of social issues, economic issues, many issues which put a lot of stress on the family and the human being. It's very important for people to realize that the amount of mental health problems that there are in cities are mounting. There are cases of uh, bipolar depression, with the cases of people taking their lives because of depression and things. And it's very important, therefore, to carry your own briefcase and carry your own weather of good feelings. So I also feel that to attend to those good feelings is to be aware of when you're feeling a bit down. It's very important to also understand that the opposite sometimes of feeling happy can happen when you feel sad. Though every time a negative feeling is not cancelled out by a positive feeling. It's not like negative and positive are like a mathematical equation. But it's important to recognize those feelings within you, because if you're not feeling good, it's important to see a professional, a psychiatrist or a counselor, etc., which unfortunately in the Indian context is taboo. Uh, we use very loose language about someone who's having mental depression. We say that the person is, I don't know, not okay or not normal, and people use all kinds of unkind kind of language. So I think it's positive psychology is something which is to build one's strengths, and those who study and practice positive psychology actually believe on the strength theory. Unfortunately, as I said somewhere during my first few sentences, the tendency is to depend more on feedback or weaknesses. Someone's talking in the call. Can you take the call, please? Yeah. Maybe Professor Patak would like to make an announcement so that people can mute
Yes,
their
sir.
mic.
Yes, sir. Please, all the participants are requested to, mute their mics, please.
Mhm. So the idea that is vital about positive psychology, which subscribes to the strength theory, is that you build on your strengths. and you, rather than focusing only on weaknesses, because getting rid of weakness gets you an average person, but building on strength gets you a brilliant person. So therefore, it's important to focus on the strengths, while somehow, whether it is teachers, whether it is managers, whether it's leaders, the unwritten rule seems to be, let's fix what's wrong and let the strengths take care of themselves. Not at all. It's not as if we'll fix what is wrong and then the strengths take care of themselves. Very, very wrong. One should focus on the strengths and just not overlook the strengths and say, oh, they'll take care of themselves. Why does this happen? Why do people focus more on the weaknesses rather than the strengths, which leads to not positive psychology but neutral or negative psychology? The first error, that fixing or correcting a weakness will result in making a person or organization stronger. It's an assumption. Eliminating a weakness does not make one great. At best, it will only help the individual or organization becoming normal or average. The second error, there is no need to foster strengths as they will take care of themselves and develop naturally. This is faulty, absolutely faulty, because taking one's strengths for granted results in just normal or average outcomes, as those strengths do not mature to their full potential. Imagine the huge potential that we have in ourselves. You've seen sportsmen, you've seen uh, physically challenged people doing impossible things, people climbing mountains. So we have huge amount of potential, though that potential will blossom only if you focus on the strengths. And in order to capitalize on those strengths, they must be nurtured and honed. Right from the time you are bringing up a child, don't focus and criticize the child for what the child didn't accomplish. Praise the child for what the child accomplished. The script begins then. The third error, the belief that strengths and weaknesses are opposites, not a mathematical equation. Although many people think that if they shore up their weaknesses, they can turn them into strengths. This is simply just not true. We do not learn about strengths by studying weaknesses. The study of weaknesses and deficits provides erroneous information about what to work on and to improve your performance. And the final error, the idea that people can do anything they put their minds to. So therefore, even while selecting careers, young people who may be hearing me on the call, besides the honorable faculty and honorable academics and others who are hearing me, uh, please understand, the notion suggests that anyone can be successful at anything if you're willing to work hard. That's wrong. This is not the case, as all people have their own unique sets of strengths. You have your own unique set of strengths that will empower them to be successful in certain areas but not others. So it's important to select also a career which makes you happy. Just because the herd mentality is to do MBA or to do something else which is going to get you a job is not a great idea, because for half your life you're going to be unhappy. So you can also do a lot to make yourself happy. And the reality is that we can and should try anything we try to wish, but long-term success will elude us unless we determine what we are good at. Now, there are various theorists, and one of the big theorists on this whole subject of positive psychology, beside Seligman and Csikszentmihalyi, is a person called Barbara Frederickson, who talks about the Broaden and Build theory of positive emotions, which is another key theory that underpins many of the ideas of positive psychology. So what she says is, she talks about the utility and importance of positive emotions in people's lives. And prior to the development of this theory, there's hardly any research that existed to study positive emotions. What she figured out is that negative emotions have been studied for many decades, and most people understand what negative emotions are important for various reasons, maybe for survival. But most people, including those who research negative emotions, conclude that positive emotions have little utility beyond signaling that one is free of negative emotions. So the broaden and build theory explains, the broaden and build theory by Barbara Frederickson explains that positive emotions do much more than just signal that there are no problems. Positive emotions are just as important for our survival and our ability to flourish in life as negative emotions. And the theory says the Broaden hypothesis, it talks about the build hypothesis, the undoing, the resilience, and the flourishing hypothesis. So, what is the Broaden hypothesis? When someone is feeling positive emotions, they're able to see more possibilities. I mean, you don't feel trapped. Today, actually, uh, unfortunately, because of news media, because of various depressing tweets that we see all the time in internet about how many people have succumbed to COVID and so on, you don't see possibilities. I mean, you see more and more narrowing as the the number of people who are getting the infection goes up. So one can see possibilities if you broaden it by saying, can I maintain social distance? Can I wear a mask? Can I wear a face shield? Can I make sure that I avoid all crowded places? So this broadening effect of positive emotions is essentially the opposite of what happens when people experience negative. Negative emotions means कल ना कल ना परसों जो है होने ही वाला है. So I'm going to get it one day or the other. Positive, effective experiences not only signal personal well-being but also contribute to personal growth and development. And many negative emotions such as anxiety or anger narrow people's momentary thought action, so they are ready to act as a particular self-protective way. Positive emotions, in contrast, broaden momentary thought action repertoire. I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I have two hobbies. I just told the colleague Professor Mohapatra from Minnesota, that uh, my ideal concept or my ideal, shall we say, feeling of happiness is when I go to a place called Mangala Jodi, which is about 70-80 kilometers from Bhubaneswar, and I go and do wildlife photography there, wild bird photography actually. And for birding, it's one of the most beautiful places. Um, there are about 900,000 birds which come from different parts of the world. They have all the colors that you can imagine and think of. They make beautiful sounds. And when you click them, I can't describe that. For me, that is true happiness. I also have another hobby that I work on scale model trains, both HO, half O, as well as double O. And this is a hobby that involves deep electronics. It's a precision hobby. I have 62 trains in my house. I have many tracks, and I convert analog trains into digital trains. When I fit the decoder in the train, I'm very, very tense whether it's going to work or not, because I have to wire, maybe 50 or 60 wires with great dexterity and detail, soldering each to the right point. And if I don't do that properly, I lose the whole decoder, and I don't get the decoder very easily as a replacement. I can tell you that the feeling when I put the train on the track after the conversion and it starts firing up with different sounds and lights is exhilarating. You feel great. You feel really great. So I do experience distress when I'm doing it, because sometimes I get confused whether I've connected the right wire or not. But I have euphoric stress, eustress, when I see the train working. So I think positive psychology is something that every human being can do something about. I can understand that some of us see others who are living in abject poverty and are living in very difficult conditions. Even they find those little spaces in life to feel happy. It's the kind of self-talk that you do. It's the kind of resilience that you build in your mind. It's the kind of auto-suggestion that you do. And I think we in India are destined to be a happy country. I know that we are very near a country that brags of happiness, Bhutan. It's supposed to be the world's happiest country and so on, but we're very near that country. And I think one of the one of the beauties of living in a country like, beautiful things about living in a country like India is the fact that there is so much to be happy about. So with that, I will pause now for questions a little later.
Thank you, sir. Very beautifully, you have linked the genesis of happiness and positive psychology with concepts like performance appraisal and employee engagement. In fact, the concept of flow that we generally talk in our classes as colloquially believing as being in the zone or being totally immersed in whatever you are doing. So, what I take from your lecture is that we should focus more on our strengths, on building our strengths. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, sir. Moving forward, my next question is to Dr. Pathak. Sir, looking at your vast and rich experience in academics and the fact that you must have handled a lot of youngsters in your career, it intrigues me to ask, if I may, how is the young lot different in terms of their psychology, thinking process, and perception of happiness? Further, sir, please touch upon the dimensions of happiness and ways and means of cultivating happiness in one's life. Please, sir.
Thank you, Smarky.
Thank you, sir.
Your name is rather difficult, so I took some time to pronounce it. Anyway, so to answer your question, I'll go back to your WhatsApp message that you had sent maybe yesterday or day before yesterday. You said that you'll be giving me 10 minutes to deliberate on this subject. And I was so confused talking about happiness for 10 minutes when the top universities of the world are selling it as a course of 1 year or 1.5 year diploma programs. But then, after giving a considerable degree of thought, I came to one conclusion that yes, 10 minutes is also a long enough time. All I need is a moment because happiness is a realization. So that is where I am going to start from. In fact, long back there was a poet, John Keats. He said that a thing of beauty is joy forever. So that was happiness. Now, trying to find it out, there is another very popular idiom which says, beauty lies in the beholder's eye. So, putting these two phrases or say quotes together, we come to what happiness is and how to find it there. But yes, explaining this to a younger generation is not going to be easy. As a student of psychology, what I have learned is that happiness is a conditioned response. So for a say kid, maybe say people like senior people like Sriram or maybe myself, for my grandson, his pebbles are a source of happiness. And as he grows, the sources of happiness keep on changing. So for the younger generation, it is a conditioned response. And in these what we call COVID times, when everything appears so melancholic, so anxious, so uncertain, finding happiness is a tall order. But yes, what I need to emphasize is that looking for happiness outside is not going to help. Happiness usually is a state of mind. And how to arrive at that state of mind is the big question. In fact, what you wanted to know about the younger generation, which we popularly call millennials, they have a lot of ambitions. And these ambitions have all come to a standstill because of no colleges, no education, no pre-placement offers, no opportunities to venture out, and they are all confined to their rooms. Maybe most of the time they are confined to the laptops and mobile phones. And this, in fact, has added to their woes. In fact, what we are witnessing is that Facebook or WhatsApp or other these social media sites, they are creating more problems than they are solving. So what I would suggest is that the younger generation also has to realize one thing, that instead of looking outwards, they need to look inwards and develop that ability to see the big picture. In fact, by big picture, what I mean is that you have to see things in their perspective. You know, one problem which this whole pandemic has given is massive lifestyle disruption. It's a massive lifestyle disruption. And that is one reason why I think in the newspapers we read that 10-year, 12-year child is also committing suicide, 80-year-old man is also committing suicide, young man of 30, 35 is also committing suicide, and film actors like Sushant Singh is also committing suicide. So naturally, it is the lifestyle disruption that has caused a hell lot of anxiety and hell lot of uncertainty. And we have no answer to this. We don't know when this whole thing is going to end. So instead of trying to see this thing from a melancholic perspective and anxiety-driven thought process, we need to think of this whole thing as a nature-driven problem over which we have no control. And what is the best way? In fact, in psychology, one definition of normal behavior is adjustment. Abnormal behavior, we often call maladjustment. So the best course is to adjust to a given situation. And these young people, they must be watching a lot of cricket. So to them, I would advise that take some very vital lessons from a good batsman who is playing a test match. When you are out on the crease and you find very hostile bowling, a very attacking field, and a very sticky wicket, what do? You hang around, stay on the wicket, and wait for the loose ball. So in such situations, there is no need to go for the boundaries and over boundaries. If you can manage with singles and doubles, that will do. And just wait for the loose ball. Maybe they must have heard the commentator to the batsman is going great. The commentator often says that unless he does anything silly, he can see India through or he can see his country through. But then suddenly you find that the batsman does that silly thing and in a huff leaves the crease, striking his bat to the ground. So my best course of action suggested is that stay on the wicket, don't commit a hit wicket, and wait for the loose ball. But of course, for this you need a lot of patience. And the other important thing is that develop that tendency to see things in totality. In fact, when we see things from what we call myopic viewpoint, we don't get the big picture. For instance, I'll give you an example. Most of us, we are used to going to railway stations to catch a train to travel to some place. And most of the time, what happens is that we find that the trains are late. And late by, say, a good 3 hours, 4 hours. And what do? We start cursing the railway department. And we also start cursing ourselves that whenever I come to the platform to catch a train, the train is late. The fact is not so. The train is late for another 5,000 people who are waiting for the same train. So this is my definition of a positive outlook. This is how you need to look at things. And for achievements, aspirations have risen very high and you need to really slog. And two things you must remember, that in your hands, you have only the planning and effort part. You can plan and plan very meticulously. Of course, the plan also is based on your assumptions about the environment, the way it is going to shape up in the future. And your plans are based on your assumptions about your own rationality. But I'll come to that later on. First thing is, you need to plan, and you can only plan very meticulously. Then, in order to fulfill that plan, you need to take certain steps. So, efforts. Effort also is in your hand. How diligently, how sincerely you put your efforts will determine whether you will actually achieve your goals or not. That also is not necessary. But when it comes to the outcome, you will always have to remember that outcome is a function of a lot many other factors which are not accounted for in your scheme of things. So you have to be very careful. We made so much of fuss about Sushant Singh committing suicide, why he did, why someone like him, a successful man, and all those things. But we forgot one thing, that in 1962, a very popular Hollywood actress, Marilyn Monroe, she committed suicide on 4th August 1962. And what was her cause? So it's always, what we see is not the truth. We have to realize the truth. We have to see the big picture. And we have to learn the art of what we in psychology call the renovation. So that railway platform example which I gave, when you reach the reach the station, waiting for the train, and the train is late, don't curse the railway or your own self, because that is how things were going to happen, and you have to adjust. So, in a nutshell, what has happened is that this whole corona pandemic has brought a very massive lifestyle disruption all over the globe. And it's not only India, not only Canada, not only, say, Pakistan or poor countries or rich countries. Every country in the world is affected. Even the mighty Americans are worried about corona with no end in sight. So naturally, we have our friend from Minnesota. He will be talking about that also. So naturally, when people like Trump have no clue, who have all the wherewithals to cope with such a situation, I think there's no need to worry. All we need is to develop that mental resilience which Mr. Yogi Sriram talked about, and you have to learn to adjust. Mental resilience is one thing that people vary in their ability, and that is what we call stress tolerance limit, which is different for different individuals. But the important thing to note here is that you can raise these stress tolerance limits by some very simple practices, and most of them are out there available on the net. You can check on the net, spend some 15-20 minutes. What we have been doing is that we have been spending a lot of time on our career, we have been spending a lot of time on our motorcycles, we have been spending a lot of time on our motor cars. So what should be the cost of a motor car or a motorcycle? Maybe 50,000, 60,000, or a car maybe 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs. But we have failed to give time to a very, what we call, big property which we own, our own body. And in the organs bazaar, one estimate is that it is worth somewhere around $30 million. So spending some 15-20 minutes for your own self is going to give a big opportunity for you to develop yourself and raise your stress tolerance limit. Do some very simple things. There is no need to go to a hill station for a vacation. You simply enjoy reading a simple book. I enjoy reading comics. They are, in fact, very effective stress busters. I enjoy simple Indian music. They are very effective stress busters. I enjoy doing some 15-20 minutes, what we call aerobics. They are very effective stress busters. I enjoy doing those things which I like. I enjoy writing. I do a lot of writing. So for those who have some hobby, they practice those hobbies. For those who have no hobby, develop a hobby, learn something new, and what we call is reskill yourself, develop yourself. Problem is when you start looking at the, what we call the darker side of a situation, you develop melancholic tendencies, and that is dangerous. So for the young people, this is not the end of the world. I think we are almost more than halfway through. Another, say, 4 or 5 months, and we will be out of the woods. That is pakka. In fact, in 1980, there was a bigger pandemic. And those days, we were not prepared at all. No antibiotic, no such agencies, no WHO, no, in fact, hospital beds, no ventilators. Still, we saw through that. So it's not going to end the world. The world is going to continue. Just hang around, stay on the wicket, don't do anything silly, and wait for the loose ball. Right, Smarika? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very well explained the total concept of happiness as you touched upon all the elements of happiness in such a short period of time. What I take from your total session is like happiness is a realization and a state of mind, and happiness to each and every one of us is different. So rather than having a myopic view, we should always consider the totality. Thank you very much, sir. Moving forward.
There are five other concepts that I wanted to talk about very briefly. If you give me just 3 minutes,
Sure, sir.
I'll complete it very fast. One is locus of control. It's an outdated concept which is taught by behavioral science professors even today, but some of it makes sense. They say that Westerners have a very high internal locus of control, whereas Indians have a very high external locus of control. They blame luck, destiny, and so on. In a way, we are blessed because we believe in destiny, we believe in luck, we believe in fate, we believe in God and stuff like that, which does lead you to some kind of happiness. The second is self confidence building. I think it's very important for parents to understand how important it is to have happy children by building confidence. The third is I've received some notes on the chat box about recessionary times and stuff. This is a time to feel grateful to whatever we have. Look at the more unfortunate people around us and feel more grateful to whatever we have. The fourth is there is no doubt in today's time the stress levels are increasing like anything because we are all focusing on digital media. You can't see my body language, I can't see your body language. Okay. I think digital has its own toll. It is very, very difficult to keep absolutely mentally fit when there's digital. We must recognize that, and therefore we must interact with our family members and all that much more. And the last point is social media. Social media can be very, very unforgiving and cruel when it comes to affecting moods of people with all those emojis and things. I think we must be very aware of what those emojis do to us, especially younger people are very vulnerable to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Research on happiness shows that the thought process of a person is more or less influenced by the culture. The Eastern culture, for example, is marked by the ideologies of philosophers like Buddha, Swami Vivekananda, or the verses of Bhagavad Gita. For example, there's an extremely popular verse of the Bhagavad Gita on doing your duty. It's so much popular that even most school children in India are familiar with it. It's the 47th verse of the second chapter, which says, Karmani vadikaraste ma phalechu kadachan Ma karma hetu brahmate sangha astu akarmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities and never be attached to not doing your duty. If I try to look at it in terms of our topic today, may interpret it thinking that both expectation and assumptions are really harmful for our mental health and well-being. Drawing from here, finally, my question is to Dr. Rama. Sir, your idea of positive thinking is influenced by both Eastern and Western philosophies, and hence I request you to share your views, focusing on the cross-cultural perspective of positive thinking and happiness. Please, sir.
Thanks, Maraki, for the introduction and really coordinating this webinar very smoothly.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to also thank Dr. Biswajit Patnaik for the invitation. I feel really humbled and very fortunate to be with Mr. Sriram and Dr. Pathak as one of the panelists. As you have asked me to share my views on the cross-cultural perspectives, comparing the Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, and give some examples from my own life. I will try to do my best, try to have some time at the end for the questions to be answered. Try to maintain the 10 minutes, but it might be difficult. We will see. To give you the cultural perspective, I would like to give a little bit about my background. I'm from Odisha, India, the place of lots of many different religions, Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. So I studied geography as a Bachelor of Arts, Masters, and Philosophy in Odisha itself. Got trained in Geographical Information System, remote sensing, fortunate to be associated or trained from organizations like National Atlas Thematic Mapping Organization and ISRO. Worked in IIT Kharagpur for an international Canadian sponsored project. I have also extensive work experience, volunteer and otherwise, among the tribals. In Odisha, I've been exposed to very, very rare tribes, almost 20 different tribes in Odisha. Then subsequently, I came to United States to do my PhD from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Uh, as a profession, now I am teaching at Minnesota State University, Mankato, for almost 10 years. And I can call myself as a mathematical modeler who deals with big data, lots of machine learning, neural networks, artificial intelligence, those type of things. And these are all applied to the urban systems. Try to understand what is going on. I believe I'm a positive thinker, uh, and more or less, I'm a happy person. That's my belief. So for today, the webinar revolves around two different themes, and I'm hearing, esteemed speakers here about psychology, positive psychology. I'm not a psychology person. I'm a geographer, but these two different things I think are very highly related. Your positive thinking and happiness. So what is my understanding of positive thinking? I think it's about optimism. It's about satisfaction. Uh, it's about assessment, understanding your strengths, weakness, as mentioned by Sriram and also Pathak. Then the question would be, what is happiness? So positive thinking is about me, myself, right? Happiness is also the same, but it's a little bit different, I think. It's my daily life experiences, which can be influenced by positive and negative situations. And based on those situations, based on those experiences, I feel happy. Whether it is my workplace, otherwise it's my life, it's my hobbies. As Mr. Siram said, he goes to Chilka to photograph rare birds, and he, I believe, feels happy about what he does. So these are the two different things. I think, in my understanding, my opinion, they are the two sides of the same coin. So we are talking about
Mr. Moitro, Mr. Sarup Moitro.
so uh, w- what I'm thinking, according to me, is if we cannot think positive, then it will be difficult to be happy. And if you are not happy, then it will be difficult to think positive. Uh, so, and from the cultural perspective, I'm going to give you some examples from my own cases, my life. I was a student in Cuttack, Odisha, in the Revensa Collegiate School. As a student there, we used to pray every day morning. And as you have referred to Karmanne Vadika Rastu, I would come a little bit later. We used to, I remembered, pray two different Vedic verses. I didn't know what does that mean. At later stage in my life, I started understanding, exploring. So the first one is Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pasyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. And it's a Santi mantra, ends with Om Santi Santi Santi. So what this teaches me as a kid from day one, at that level, when I was 10 years old, I'm seeking, I'm praying that everybody should be happy, disease free, and everybody should seek for auspicious, views, and there should not be anybody who is in sorrow. The second one, which I remember, is Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahabiryam Karvavahe Tejasvi Namadhitam Astu Mavid Visavahe Om Santi Santi Santi. So there, in the third one, it says that whosoever is the powerful, please bestow me with all sorts of energy, good energy. So these are the things which comes from Eastern philosophies. Then I visited Canada in 2001, subsequently joined Wisconsin Milwaukee as a student in 2004. And my experience on the streets, people would say, random people, you don't know, they are not even from your neighborhood, they are not next to your building, you have never seen them, with really a smiley face which comes from inside. They are not forced to smile, it comes from inside. They will greet you,
Mm.
they will say hi, how are you doing. It's not an icebreaker, it's them. So what it brings on that particular street is the positive feelings, leads to positive thoughts. So the East and the West, they are the same. They are different in approaches. We have understood the East in a different way, understood the West in a different way. So going back to this whole positive thinking and happiness, when we look into the great question, if the glass is half full or half empty, the glass is basically full. And that's how what the successful people have done. They could control their mind and say, through, like, their thoughts, we can say cognitive control, and they saw that glass as full, although it is half full, because that's what is the positive thought. You take the examples of whether Kalam, APJ Kalam, the results are with us, the Mars mission at the cost of gravity movie. Uh, talk about the Ambani's top 10 richest people. Pichai now in the Google has a relation with IIT Kharagpur, was a student there. Satya Nadella in you know uh, Microsoft was a student at Wisconsin Milwaukee. So all of these successful people, uh, know how to control their thoughts. They can differentiate between the negative thoughts, positive thoughts, identify the weaknesses, move forward. Now, bringing to the West and East relationship, I would give you one example of the great Steve Jobs. Before even Apple, when I was maybe even not born, 1970, 74, 75 years, he went to India and spent some time. He was mystified by the Eastern philosophies. He was looking for clues to understand the complexity questions of science. Subsequently, also advised uh, Mark Zuckerberg to go and visit the same temple which he visited in search of his future vision. So the East has a lot to offer. It's a lot to offer. And you gave the example of, when we look into our own strengths and weaknesses, try to filter negative thoughts. As Dr. Pathak said, don't blame yourself. It's not just you. Don't personalize stuff. It's you know uh, don't think of the worst. Try to do your job. Don't have expectation. We are younger generation. We are 20s, 25. We would have expectation, definitely. But it's karmanne vadikarastu. I have the right to do my duty, but maybe with little bit of expectation. But it's possible. We can be somewhere in Microsoft. We can be somewhere in Google, coming from India. A second generation Ambani. It's just the second generation. We can be there. We can be Kalam. We can send the Mars orbiter without much of external support. It's completely indigenous. So we can do that. Now the question is, how do you do that? Maybe filter your negative thoughts. Uh, understand your expectations, try to be satisfied with certain things, try to accept that I have the right to do my duty. Nothing, everything is not under my control. One of the most important things I do as a person, that's where I think I'm a positive thinker. I talk to myself in difficult situations. There is a tornado, there is a cyclone. I talk to myself, what is the best? There is a tornado warning, there is a cyclone. I should go to the shelter. That's what I'm going to do. The cyclone is going to go after some time. I just need to survive for that time period. Maybe that is the best option right then. I need to do that. I talk to myself. Have a balanced life, exercise, sleep, do your hobbies, go for photography, book reading. I do gardening now in US. As you guys are aware about, the cases are so high. I don't have much to do, I cannot go to places. I just have a small kitchen garden. I do gardening. Try to be around positive thinkers, happy people, good people. In the Eastern philosophy, we have the satsang. Do those things. I think these simple stuff would definitely help. 100 years back, we could survive the Spanish flu, where several millions of people died. This is nothing. We might hit a million number in couple months, which would eventually will hit, but that's not the end of the world. We have a lot to do. We have to send our orbiters to far beyond than Mars. We have to scale new heights. Not the fifth richest person in the world, maybe the richest person in the world. You know, uh, who knows? So that's where I would end. I didn't leave you much time, Sparky. Took 1 or 2 more minutes. Go ahead.
No problem, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Indeed, positive feelings leads to happiness. And after listening to you, I hope we all looking at start looking at the glass as full and not half empty or a half full. Thank you so much for your deliberation. Now we would like to take few questions from the participants. I can see a few questions. The first question is from Ms. Someshri Mahanti. She is asking, sir, seeing the current market scenario of job cuts, recession, opportunity crunch, how to keep positive thought process ongoing, continue being motivated for students as well as professionals. Yogi sir, would you like to take this question?
I think the best way is to first of all keep learning more. I think in a time like this, when you have to be extremely careful about going to classes, even if the classes start. First of all, in many places the classes have not started. It's very important to depend upon digital media for learning. Luckily, in spite of the pandemic, we are in an era, especially young people who are listening to this webcast, are in an era when they can do many courses and so on. So one of the good ways to keep yourself mentally agile and fit is to keep learning. The second is, as Professor Mohapatra talked about, discipline. It's very, very important. I think it's important to structure your day in a way where you don't get caught into some kind of a quagmire of depression and a quagmire of thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and stuff. Best way is to act. What else will you do? And the third is to be grateful. I mean, as I said during the 3 minutes that I spoke, after I finished my session and after Professor Pathak spoke, I think being grateful itself is very healing. So it's very important to feel good about whatever you have and take care of yourself. I don't think the corona is going to be active for life. It's going to probably, as Professor Pathak alluded to, it's going to be there for maybe 3, 4, 5 months, till 6 months, maybe till the vaccine is found. So I think being optimistic is very important. To quote Professor Mohapatra, being optimistic is very important. And I think looking at the positive side of life is very important. And listen, it's very important to draw two circles. One is your circle of concern and the other is your circle of influence. What you cannot influence, why do you worry about that? What you cannot influence beyond a point, if your circle of concern is larger than your circle of influence, you'll always feel worried, anxious, depressed. Whereas your circle of concern should be something which is within the circle of influence. What I can do and what I can't do is very important for you to delineate, and then do whatever best you can. So I would spend a lot of time in learning new skills. I would learn, and digital gives you a very good chance also, as compared to physical, as compared to analog training, to get back into fundamentals. I see in so many interviews students saying, "Oh, I learned this in my concepts in second year or third year, and it was too conceptual. I forgot about it." This is a great chance to get to fundamentals and what college kids call as fundas. Very important to get your fundas straight. And whether it is asynchronous learning or synchronous learning, a great time to learn new skills.
Thank you, sir. Another question by Mr. Sanmay Rath. He is asking, sir, this kind of situation is not new. Indian continent has witnessed wars, pandemics, floods, etc. in the past, but this time the situation is something different. We are getting stressed out and our livelihood is badly affected. We have no clues what to do if this locking and unlocking continues for another period. So practically one cannot stay positive without money. Please address. Dr. Pathak, would you like to take this question? Pathak, sir?
Sparky is muted.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sir, would you like to take this question?
Yeah. What's the question? Yes, in
Sir,
brief.
Mr. Sanmay Rath is asking that as the locking and unlocking is continued and every livelihood is badly affected, so practically one cannot stay positive without money. Please address.
I think the question focuses on money, but it misses one valid point. How much money? See, as I said in the very beginning, that the problem was of lifestyle disruption. See, the bare necessities can still be met for a large number of people. Of course, there are some people who may not be able to manage, but for a large number of people, the bare necessities can be managed. And in these difficult times, in fact, what has happened was that in the past, I think 10, 15, 20 years, under the influence of multinational corporations, the products, and the what we call the blitzkrieg of the very commercial TV commercials and advertisements, we unnecessarily started developing habits which were not needed. And in the process, we thought that they are necessities. Now, when those necessities are not being met, we are feeling stressed. But the point to remember is that the problem is not with the availability of the necessities, the problem is with the identification of the necessities. So, how much money is needed, that has to be understood first. And of course, remaining negative is not going to help you earn money. Whatever little help is going to come from staying positive, thinking about the ways in which you can earn money. And this is a time where what we call fashionably gig economy. So if you don't have one job, try to find another job. You don't have another job, try to find another job. I mean, that is what you will have to do now. So the days of what we call long-term employment are numbered, and for the present time, they are not there. So you have to cope with the situation and adjust. But the mantra is adjustment. How much you can adjust, how much of the needs you can curtail, how much of the basic needs you can meet, that you have to decide.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to just add a few sentences there.
Sure, sir.
I think this is a fantastic time to be innovative. I think money is required definitely. However much one is a yogi or a real yogi, you need the money. You need the money to survive. You need the money to eat. You need the money to educate yourself. We're talking about non-ostentatious kind of living. But I think it's very important to think of innovative ways. In the building I'm staying in, there are 6 buildings around me. I'm staying in a condominium where there are, many flats. I find people have been very innovative. They've started, home chefs. So people cook Parsi food, somebody cooks continental food, and they've started a small, a supply kind of thing. So I think the possibilities of humankind under adversity are infinite. Uh, I think the most innovative and most interesting things have happened when people are under stress of economic conditions and so on. Uh, I know it's easy to talk from here where one is in a stable job and things. I empathize a lot with people who are concerned about their future. But this is the time to get up and be action oriented, join a startup, be an entrepreneur, learn a new skill, but fight it out.
Thank you, sir. Another question we have here is from Miss Pallavi. Sir, how can we forget negative thoughts from our minds and how we move the mind towards the positive thoughts which give us happiness? Dr. Rama, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, it's a really tough question, but I will try to address that. As I have mentioned earlier, try to filter negative thoughts. That means try to understand oh, what are your negative thoughts. That way, you can move towards the positive ones. That is, as I was giving examples, there is one very powerful sukta we have from Rig Veda, which is called Ratri Suktam. It describes the power of darkness or Ratri or the night. Uh, at the same sukta, it also mentions that the light has the power to remove the negativity of darkness. So the very presence of light removes darkness, right? So that's what is. You have to have your self assessment. Don't think, as I mentioned earlier, don't think that you are the cause of certain problems. Okay, don't anticipate worst. Like I said, 100 years back, we had Spanish flu, which was much larger in the scale. This is nothing. So don't look into your life, your situations in terms of black and white. There is always a gray area. There is always, definitely, there is a gray area. Like Dr. Siram Mr. Siram mentioned, try to channelize your energy towards something innovative. This is the time. Try to learn something new. There are so much opportunities now because of the online world. It's almost free. It's you just have to register. uh, do those kind of stuff. And Dr. Pathak mentioned the expectations. I don't have money. The question is how much money. Do I have money for bare minimum food 3 times a day, 2 times a day? This is the cyclone going on at 250 speed, 250 kilometer speed on top of my head. Should I take shelter? Take shelter. The cyclone will go away. Definitely, it's going to go away. It's just a matter of time. It's like 2 months, 3 months. It's gone. Then you come out and then go. Take diversions from the negativity. Think of the hobbies, photography. Go to a temple, visit something. If you are like worship place, talk to yourself. Everything will be fine. Rama, things are going to be better in 6 months. Uh, so those kind of stuff I think should help you. I know it's as Mr. Siram said, it's very easy to say these things where I am sitting from with a stable job. This, but this is the challenge. This is the time when we need to overcome the negativity. You can do it. People have done it. The greats. I gave you the example of Callum. Pichai can become the CEO of Alphabet. Nadella can become the CEO of Microsoft. Why can't we overcome this whole Corona thing? It's just a matter of time.
Thank you, sir. We have already crossed our time limit, so I'll just take another one last question from Mohammed Ahsan. He is asking if we have any kind of means or tools to measure happiness. Dr. Pathak, would you like to take this question?
See, in fact, the situation is that there may be many tools like that in the marketplace, but we don't know whose happiness they measure. So the best judge is the individual himself, and the best course of action to measure happiness is not to worry about unnecessary things. Why we worry is because we try to extend control over things we have no control. So a very interesting approach is given by a very popular speaker. He's a yogi. I mean, I'm not our Yogi Shri Ram. He's a real different, that saffron yogi. So that saffron yogi says that if you have a problem and if you can do something about it, why worry? On the contrary, if you have a problem and if you can't do anything about it, why worry? So that is the problem. And unnecessary worries, in fact, they rob you of your happiness. Happiness is basically a realization, I again reiterate, and this realization has to come from within. So rather than brooding over unnecessary things, you enjoy what it is and take life in the way you have got it for the time being. The problem is that we often want to go for so many things at the same time, and that creates problems. So desires have to be under control for some time. When you will get this, that is what I meant when I said that stay on the wicket and wait for the loose ball. When you will get the loose ball, go for the boundaries, but for the time being, be content with ones and twos. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now just take a few minutes to mention my takeaway from this session. Sometimes you may not be happy, but you still feel that your life has meaning, that you have the inner strength to cope with the challenges that comes your way, which I believe is nothing but self-belief formulated by positive thinking. In the words of Michael J. Hogan, collective dynamics are critical in shaping pathways of human development. As he observes, times are bad right now with prevalent environmental degradation, pandemics, conflicts, so which are leading to chronic diseases, mental illness, and all of these crises are also provoking horror, distress, shame, guilt, etc. It is possible through collaboration to respond with greater solidarity, collective intelligence, and collective wisdom. Here, I would like to share a few lines which depict a clear relationship between your thoughts and destiny. Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Your goal, therefore, if you want to live a wonderful life, is to cultivate positive emotions and get rid of the negative ones and start feeling happy in the most adverse situations. With these few words as takeaway, I would like to thank our esteemed panelists for accepting our invitation and for sharing their valuable insights and wisdom on a topic which is so pivotal in such difficult and trying times. I also thank all the participants for their support. I am indeed overwhelmed with gratitude. Finally, I would like to thank my IT team for all their support and cooperation. Also, the feedback link has been shared in the chat box. Thanks again for joining us today. I wish you good health and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take
Thank
care
you.
and wish you all safe and good health.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Wish you the same,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Sriram. Thank you, Dr. Pathak.
Thank you. Thank you. Right then, Mr. Yogi, thank you very much. Marika, can we leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice program organized. Thank you.